So, Matt, the other day, Michael told me a constipation joke, and constipation jokes are not my favorite, but they are a solid number 2. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable, because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
Man, I'm doing all right.
Good. So before we get into it, I'll say go check out the Podbelly Network at podbelly.com. You can find a list of shows that we're happy to be associated with, and you can find some tips and tricks on podcasting if you're into such things. Also, go check out our sponsors. I know we've said this before, but it really does help the show if you check out our sponsor websites that are hyperlinked in the show notes. You can just click it and go. Buy something, use one of our codes. I'll tell you this, Matt, I kind of told you before, but we're recording this not too long after Christmas, and I got a pair of the Me Undies joggers.
Oh, yeah.
Muy fantastico. I'll save that for our next Me Undies ad, but I'm just saying they are fantastic. So go check out this week's sponsor, which we'll talk about coming up in the episode, or check out any of our recent sponsors. Get you something with our codes, and you will help out the show along with getting you something cool. Also, go over to patreon.com/graveyardtales. Sign up to become a patron. We've got 3 different levels, 1, 5, and 10. Our $1 a month, they get the bonus episodes that we put out for our Patreon channels. Our $5, they get the audio and video version of the bonus episode, plus they get the ad-free audio and video versions of the episode. Our $10, they get all that, plus they get our second show, Side Quest, which we're having a blast with Side Quest. We started that last year. Can't believe it. I mean, we're into the 40-something episodes of that, Matt, if you can believe that.
Oh, gosh, yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
But, you know, we do a whole bunch of different things. We talk trash to each other. We have guests on. Some of our first episodes, we had our lovely ladies on. You know, Amanda was on one episode. Ashley was on another episode. We did some fun things with them. We have some, guests in the future that we're going to do. We try to make each other laugh. That's the main point of those Side Quest episodes. So if you want to hear Matt and I in a completely different setting, in a very blue, not a PG show, where this is a PG show, that's not. It's basically just me and Matt sitting around talking trash to each other. It's fun. Go over there, sign up to become a patron, join the $10 level, and you'll get everything that we put out on Patreon. Patreon.com/graveyardtales. So, Matt, that's all I've got for the housekeeping. So why don't you tell us, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
So tonight we go to Wyoming, Buffalo, Wyoming, to be specific, to check out another haunted hotel. And this one, much like other hotels we've covered in the Big Sky country, a lot of their history that would lead up to them being haunting is, really centered around Wild West.
Yeah.
Cowboys and, miners, prospectors, all these people coming through town, trying to find their fortune, in the West.
Right.
And, that led to a lot of lawlessness and things like that, which, we've talked about really leave some energy in some of these places where these folks had a tendency to congregate.
Yep.
And the Occidental Hotel in Buffalo, Wyoming was one of those places.
Yep, for sure.
And today, you can visit and stay in the Occidental Hotel, and you see there is no shortage of personal experiences from folks who have stayed at
Right.
the Occidental Hotel.
Right.
I mean, they are everywhere. They are varied. Nothing just super scary, but I mean, there's a lot of activity there.
Yep. And if I ever get up to Wyoming again, then I'm going to try to stay there.
Yeah.
My plan is to get Ashley and Michael to Yellowstone. And so we'll be up there near Wyoming. So I need to figure out exactly where Buffalo is from where we'd be and go spend a night in the Occidental there. And a random note, Matt, the Occidental, I was telling Ashley and Michael what we were recording this week. And I said, we're doing the Occidental Hotel. And Michael goes, Accidental? No, the Occidental Hotel. He goes, you're saying it wrong. It's accidental. And I said, no, it's Occidental. And then we had this whole conversation about how do you know it's called the Occidental and you're not saying it wrong? And it was just this, I'm like, it's the Occidental. Trust me. Ashley got involved in the conversation. I mean, it was crazy.
Oh my gosh. Well, did you ever watch the show Longmire?
No, I never did.
So, Longmire was a show that was, I can't remember. It was based in Montana or Wyoming, right on the border in that area. But when we were watching it, of course, they showed all of these wide open spaces and these, big ranches and all this stuff. And Amanda always said, I want to go to Montana. I want to go to Wyoming. And I said, it's just too dangerous. And she's like, what? And I said, look at this town that Longmire's in. I mean, there's like 35 people and somebody gets murdered every week.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to go there.
Murders per capita, that's a place you want to avoid.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is, to be not funny, it can be dangerous up there. If you don't know what you're doing, that's not a place to just go wandering.
Yeah, but I'm with you. I've never been to any of that area in the U.S., and I've always wanted to.
Yeah.
And, when we start talking about places we're going to travel when we retire, that is on the list.
I went to Yellowstone as a teenager, but I was a young teenager. And of course, you don't care about when you're a young teenager.
Right.
I was in one of the coolest places I could have been in. And I was like, oh, I want to get back to my girlfriend. I don't, you don't appreciate it. So I want to get back and I want to take Ashley and Michael. Yeah. And hopefully he's not, like I was. Hopefully he appreciates it.
No, I mean, Michael, knowing Michael, he might get inspiration for his artwork.
That's very true.
Which would absolutely be incredible.
Yeah.
To go up there and see some things that he's never seen before.
I can only imagine.
Ideas.
Yeah, his take on like the hot springs and geysers in Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that artistic, but to me, it was a fascinating place. And you're right. I need to take a drawing notebook with me and just hand it to him while we're in Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Here,
do this.
Something. Yep. But as we always say, go check out our sources down at the bottom of the show notes. You can find where we found all this information. You can keep going because there's some stuff that I'm going to leave out history-wise of the town and the Occidental Hotel and all that. But, there's always so much that you can find. And so Matt and I have to cull it down into a digestible amount. And we might leave something out that you might find more interesting than somebody else that we left out. So go down to the bottom of the show notes, click on those links, find where we got the information, keep going, and you'll see the original articles from the people who have been there.
Yeah. And
seen it. But the hotel, it sits at 10 North Main Street in Buffalo, Wyoming. And, you know, we'll mention it again, but I'm going to probably call it by the nickname, the Ox, rather than the Occidental, just because it's easier for my stupid Southern tongue to say Ox than Occidental. But first we need to look at Buffalo, Wyoming. Now, Buffalo, Wyoming was founded in 1879 when Fort McKinney was established at the base of the Bighorn Mountains. And it was established there to protect travelers as they were going along the Bozeman Trail. Now, that area had been a stopping point already for the Northern Plains Indians for centuries before Fort McKinney was put up or before the pioneers, travelers came in, anything like that. The Northern Plains Indians were stopping there for the same purpose. It was a good place to stop before you got into more mountainous areas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the addition of Fort McKinney and the town, it soon became a stopping place and a hangout for travelers of the time. So, like I was saying, they put that in there and they're like, okay, good. We can stop here as we're going west and take a break, enjoy ourselves. But according to local folklore, the name for the town was drawn out of a hat at the Occidental Hotel, which we'll talk about coming up.
Okay.
But Buffalo, Wyoming was named after the Ox was built, and they drew the name in there. Apparently, Will Hart put the name of his hometown, Buffalo, New York, into that hat, and it was drawn out, and they went, okay, we'll call it Buffalo. So Buffalo, New York was named before Buffalo, Wyoming, which you would think there'd be more Buffalo in Wyoming than New York.
Yeah.
So you would think it would get the name Buffalo before, but naming things is weird. Never what you think it's going to be.
That's an understatement, big time. Naming things is weird. Yeah. Yeah. We could do a whole show on stuff with weird names.
Yep. Buck snort and frog stomp.
Yeah, and people with weird names.
True, that too.
Just like this, I'm looking here. I like to look up these places as we talk about them on Google Maps, and I swear, I'm looking at Buffalo, Wyoming, and there was Fart Street. It is not.
I believe it.
It is. It looks like it is Fort Street. but my blind butt and in a weird font looks like
dude,
Fart Street. Well,
I wouldn't doubt it being named Fart Street. I think it's Sweden or the Netherlands or something has a fart town, because it doesn't mean fart doesn't mean what it means here.
Yeah, fart doesn't mean fart over there.
Right. It's like if you're listening in the UK and you hear me say the word fanny, you're giggling your butt off. And over here, it just means butt. So it's naming things is weird, Matt. I'll say it again. We'll keep going because I'm veering off track a lot.
Yeah.
Buffalo, Wyoming was where the Johnson County Cattle Wars happened. So I don't know if you've ever heard about this, Matt, but there were cattle barons and homesteaders that were competing for the right to brand cattle in the region, and it broke out into a full-on warfare.
Good night.
So because of their wealth and power, the barons were able to use, what they called dirty tactics to tip the odds into their favor, setting houses on fire and hiring gunmen to take out the most influential against their cause. In retaliation, the homesteaders started their own cattle association and scheduled their roundup to take place just before the larger one. That gave them the opportunity to take all the cattle for themselves and leave the barons without any stock for the year. Well, the conflict finally culminated in a shootout between hired guns and a posse from Buffalo at the TA Ranch, where the scene of the crime remains preserved today. The cattle war was ended in April of 1892 when President Harrison sent troops from McKinney to arrest the hired guns. So they have preserved this shootout, kind of like the shootout at the OK Corral.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. They've preserved that for historical purposes. But after the cattle wars ended, Fort McKinney was actually disbanded. So instead of cattle now, the community started ranching sheep in the area, and then the tourist industry started up. So there was such a big kerfuffle with the cattle wars there that many of the people in the area just kind of started moving to sheep ranching.
Yeah.
And cattle kind of moved out. And, Texas had a big cattle ranching thing at the time, big cattle drive. So they were able to fill a hole with sheep ranching. And then tourists moved in and, tourism ruins everything, as we say. Now let's look at the Occidental Hotel, or the Ox. Why is it called the Occidental? This is the argument that I made when Ashley and Michael and myself were going at it. Ashley said, well, maybe you're pronouncing Occidental wrong. Maybe it's Occidental. Or I'm like, no, it's Occidental because they call it the Ox.
Yeah,
so,
right.
And then I had to explain what Occidental meant. Well, Occidental means generally Western. So it's a traditional designation, especially when it's capitalized, for anything belonging to the Occidental or the West, and that comes from Europe. So especially of its, Western culture. So it's indicated the Western direction in historical astronomy. It's often abbreviated OCC. So if you're saying Occidental, it just means the West, Western direction.
Do you know, and I'm just gonna put this out there because when you said that, I realized I knew what this word was.
Okay. All right.
What is the opposite of Occidental?
Purpose dental.
Oriental.
Oh yeah, Eastern. Yeah. Okay.
Because it means the East.
Yeah.
The reason I never put it together, the reason I remember that is because when I was in high school, our Latin teacher made us take vocabulary tests, just on English words so that, we could see the how they were derived from, Latin and so forth. And you experienced a lot of new words that in high school you would have not come across. And this was on that list. And with it being the name of the hotel, it never occurred to me, You know this word. See, those gnomes that when I hear something and go dig out the file in my brain, see, they're off for Christmas.
Well,
so
also,
they haven't come back to work yet.
Yeah. They might have dropped that on the way to the forebrain. That piece of paper may have fallen out of the file. So
that's true. That's true.
It took a minute for one of them to go, oh, crap, we dropped one, and had to run back and get it.
Yeah, but that's it. So when you think of it that way, you're like, oh, now it makes perfect sense.
Yep. So the Occidental Hotel, just Western Hotel. Go look up pictures. It lives up to the name. It's Western as heck. I mean, the just from old pictures up to modern day, a very Western motif in that hotel. Now, according to the Museum of the Occidental Hotel, in the summer of 1879, a group of travelers along the Bozeman Trail in north central Wyoming stopped for lunch along the area that was to become known as Clear Creek. So it was also the future site of Buffalo. Well, at the time, one of the travelers, Charles Buell from Wisconsin, cooked up, a fine meal for his companions. Well, later that day, as he traveled over the recently opened Bozeman Trail, he liked what he saw, and he decided to settle along that same stream. Barely after getting settled in, with his tent pitched, and along this Clear Creek site, some hungry miners were happening by. Well, they asked if they could board with him for a few days, and Buell said, yeah, sure, I'll put you up. So the miners, they were weighed down with gold that they had just recently found in the Bighorn, and Buell was well compensated for his efforts because of that. In fact, they also needed some place to store their gold, and they asked Buell, somewhat naively, if there was a bank somewhere to safekeep their treasure. Charles Buell, who was not one to miss an opportunity, they say, took them to the back of his tent and pulled back a buffalo robe that lay on the ground and revealed this deep hole. So the miners, quote, deposited their money in this hole, and Buffalo's first bank was born, along with its first hotel and restaurant.
A genius.
Genius, right? If only you could go back to days like that, before all this was there, you could be like Buell.
Yeah.
And you could, just with a tent and a hole, you could be the founder of a town, have a hotel, a bed and breakfast, and a bank. I mean,
that's it.
That would be the life. Now,
a tent and a hole. That's it.
Yeah, the story of my life, tent and a hole. It sounds like a good weekend too. Sorry, I probably should have kept that joke for another episode. But, all right, y'all, let's take a second and talk about tonight's sponsor, Mint Mobile. Now, 2025 is here, and Mint Mobile has a resolution for you. Skip the gym, skip the fad diets. You can skip the BS resolutions that you'll forget about next month, and instead, make a resolution to save some serious cash by making the switch to Mint Mobile. And right now, you can get half off their 3-month unlimited plan. Now, Matt wanted me to make sure that I told y'all, because he couldn't make it to this read, but he wanted me to tell you specifically that he switched his youngest daughter over to Mint Mobile and is able to save hundreds a year on their plan, and his service from Mint Mobile is as good or better than any of the old providers that he has had. And it's so good, and he's saving so much on it, that he's going to switch all of his kids over to Mint Mobile and get off of their old providers. Now it's time to leave your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, unexpected overages, and all their other BS in 2024. Mint Mobile is dropping huge savings for the new year by offering any 3-month plan for only $15 a month, even their unlimited plan. Now, all plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your current phone and your number. And I don't know of any other provider that would allow you to do that. Now, you can ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile. It's so easy. Sign up online and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. Switch to Mint, and new customers can get half off an unlimited plan until February 2nd. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/grave, Grave. That's mintmobile.com/grave. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Yeah, so, that's the legend of how Buffalo got started. The one that most people go off of. I couldn't tell you how much of that is true or fake, so I just have to take it at the Occidental Hotel's museum's word.
Yeah.
And say, yep, that's basically, maybe with a little Western embellishment, some Occidental embellishment, but,
It's close enough, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now, founded in 1880 by Charles Buell, the Ox Hotel quickly became one of the most renowned hotels in Wyoming. Due to its location at the foot of the Bighorn Mountains, it was visited by people in the, quote, Old West, who were pretty famous. They were traveling along the Bozeman Trail, and they wanted to stop there. Now, early in its existence, the Ox established a reputation for hospitality and fine food. So going all the way back to the tent and hole days, they had fine food. Now, among those who enjoyed the hospitality of the Ox in the early days were Buffalo Bill Cody, Teddy Roosevelt, and Calamity Jane, who drove freight wagons on the Bozeman Trail. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid rode to the Ox from their hideout at the nearby Hole in the Wall. The famous cattle detective and killer Tom Horn was another frequent visitor. And the legendary frontier sheriff, Frank Canton and Red Angus, were regulars at the bar. Many writers and artists have stayed here over the years, and they made it their headquarters. And Owen Wister, the Virginian, was there. General Sheridan and General Crook are also on the registers. So the Ox has, registers that all hotels have. They've got some famous names from the Old West in their books. I would love to sit down and just read and see who all has stayed there.
Oh, that'd
be fantastic.
That's really cool that they were able to preserve that history.
Right. That's why every time I go to some hotel that has a register like that, like the Jefferson or something, either I or Ashley will write our names down. That way, if I ever become famous for anything, somebody will at the Jefferson will go, "Did you know Adam Ballinger stayed here? Look, I got the sheet right here."
Yeah. You hope that's how it sounds and not, "Did you know that Adam Ballinger stayed here?"
Yeah. Right before he went insane. And I said famous, not infamous, Matt. I don't want to be. Now, as time passed, the Ox was expanded. It was rebuilt until it became a grand hotel with elegant decor and fine services, they say. They added on a full service bar. They had some card rooms and some billiard rooms. They even put a barber shop in the hotel. So if you were a cowboy from Wyoming or somebody traveling through Wyoming, you could come in, get you a drink, play some billiards or cards, get your hair cut, have a fine meal, sleep, and move on. I mean, that's the life for that time period. Now, cowboys from around Wyoming, like I said, business travelers, tourists from around the world, they all went miles out of their way to enjoy the comforts that the Ox offered. Now, again, from the Museum of the Occidental Hotel, in 1895 and 1912, major floods took large parts of the Ox downstream. So it was rebuilt and added on to several times, and it finally grew to be a block long with brick and mortar additions in 1903, 1908, 1910. Now, in 1890, rooms were $2.50 a day, and meals were served around the clock. The lobby, they say, provided a huge meeting place for anyone who came to Buffalo. So I wish you could get a room for $2.50 a day now.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean,
you couldn't rent somebody's closet for that.
Right. Even the motels you rent by the hour are more expensive than that. Well, then, during the Great Depression of the 1930s, the splendor of the hotel kind of faded. Everybody in Wyoming had to tighten their belts, this says. Money became pretty scarce during the Depression. Businesses dried up, and the owners of the Ox began that long struggle to keep the doors open. Well, by the 1980s, the hotel, by this time it was run down and dilapidated. It seemed like it was to be lost to history. But the town didn't tear it down. It was purchased by Dawn Dawson in 1997. She began a 10-year process of doing historic restorations on the building. So not just restoring it, she was doing it back to what it looked like in the grand old days. She was able to get the hotel on the National Historical Register as well, which is a great place for a place like that to be. Now, during this period, David Stewart helped Dawn to restore the north wing of the hotel and started the saloon's famous Occidental Jam, which was established in 2006. So, I mean, it has a storied history. Famous people from all over the West have stayed in the Ox.
Yeah. Yeah. It really, it just epitomizes, the Old West, and, not in a negative way. We hear a lot about the gunslingers and all that kind of stuff. And,
right.
These swarthy characters. This really, it celebrates, the Old West and the move Western.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely been around long enough to hold on to some of that energy that could be producing some fairly notable hauntings.
Right.
So there's a lot of interviews from staff that talk about the things that they've experienced there. And usually, especially with these small hotels, Adam, we see that the staff, they're the best ones to talk to.
Oh, for sure.
Because not only do they have a lot of experiences themselves, they usually are the ones that get the stories from the guests.
Mm-hmm.
Before the guest goes on TripAdvisor and types out a review and tells their story or anything like that, they tell one of the staff members.
Right.
Right. And so imagine if you're a staff member there and you've had a weird experience in a room or on a floor, and then you have guest after guest tell you, confirming
mm-hmm.
everything that you have experienced. And it's just like locking it in. You're like, well, I guess I work in a haunted hotel.
Right.
So Penny Ramirez, she was a waitress at the Busy Bee Cafe, which is right next door to the hotel. And it's part of the string of businesses in the block that make up Occidental Row. Now, she says at times has stepped through what felt like cobwebs at the hotel, except there's no actual cobwebs there. Like it's, shades of the 1800s. It's been sitting empty, and you're like, that feeling. People think you're insane.
For sure.
You walk through a spider web, and all of a sudden you start jerking.
Yeah.
She said that's a weird sensation, but it's one that people recognize. But when there's not a cobweb there, yeah, me too. Oh, I can't stand it. It's making look. Just thinking about it, it's making me touch my face.
Right, sitting here rubbing, going.
Yeah, but Penny says that it's usually on a Friday, and she thinks that it's because of all the energy from the jam session that occurs on Thursday night, which Adam mentioned earlier. So she says the Thursday night jam sessions bring musicians from all over for bluegrass session that lasts until about 9:30 p.m. And the sound from the jam session can be clearly heard all over the Ox.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a guest, you don't even have to go next door if you want to just enjoy the music.
Yeah.
Which I think that's pretty cool.
I like it.
Yeah. But she says one time after a jam session, Penny came into the hotel lobby and she could hear a key go ding on the piano that's sitting in the front of the hotel desk. At first, she says she thought, nah, I didn't really hear that. It was probably somebody's cell phone until it happened again. And so she asked a coworker whether there were any kind of digital alarms or something like that, which would go ding. And they said, nothing like that in the lobby. So you're like, okay.
I know what this is now.
But she says later she had a nightmare about being upstairs in the hotel And in that nightmare, she was being chased and running frantically and just scared to death.
Jeez.
And that's always a weird thing to me when people have an experience and then they have a nightmare about it at the place. It'd be one thing to just have a nightmare, but to have a nightmare about something weird you'd just experienced, that's, But she says that wasn't the creepiest thing that's happened to her. She's like, she says there's one of these spirit boxes that you can download on your phone. We've seen them. There's tons of them.
Yeah.
She said one of the girls had it on her phone, and we were asking questions like, "Hey, who are you?" And she said, "I thought I heard it say Richard." Then it made this loud popping noise across both the phone and the radio. And then it went silent. And so
That's
the
weird.
girls were like, okay, that's enough. No more. Turned off the app and stopped asking about who was there.
Yeah. Yep.
But Ramirez says that hasn't stopped the ghostly occurrences. She said since then, she's heard someone call her name in the saloon, even though no one was in the saloon at the time.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know. It's hearing your name. Ugh. It's got to creep you out at some point. Even if there's nothing really malicious going on, you hear your name, it makes you think this whatever's haunting this place or whomever is intelligent and has managed to pick up my name while I've been working here.
Yeah, I don't
Lovely.
like that.
I don't like it either.
I don't like my name to be called out anywhere because it just seems too personal at that point.
Well, and you hear all the stories if you're familiar with the stories, from Appalachia, and you're like, if you ever hear your name in the woods, no, you didn't. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, you didn't. You didn't hear anything. Just keep walking and shut up.
Turn, go the other way, something. You didn't hear what you heard.
Now, Joel Mara told the Cowboy State Daily, he says, sometimes I think things in there move. And he says he has headphones on while he's cleaning. He says, and then it's like something is moving or the chairs have a strange shadow. He said, you see something out of the corner of your eye while you're in there cleaning, doing your job. And you're kind of like, did I see something? Was this here?
Yeah.
And he says, sometimes I think it may be the clerk coming to check on me because she does that sometimes. But when I turn around and look, there's no one there. So he says, thank goodness I work with headphones. So that's, I can just ignore it.
Tune it out.
Joel sounds like he gets a little spooked by it at times. So
yeah.
I'm not saying I wouldn't either. That would be kind of creepy. Now, Vanessa Van works in the bar. And Vanessa says that she has seen bottles of whiskey and wine just pop off the shelves or pop their corks. Now, if you've ever struggled to get a cork out of like a champagne bottle or something,
yeah,
you know that it just doesn't just happen.
No,
I mean, and along with that, at least all the champagne bottles I've opened have got this little cage over it, and they've got foil around it. It's hard enough just to get to the dadgum cork.
No joke.
Much less the cork just going off on its own through all of that. So that is an odd thing to happen. She says, but the weirdest thing, when she did this interview, said it just happened to her. She's seen glasses break for no reason. A glass just breaks. I mean, she doesn't say that they fall. She says, I've seen a wine glass where someone just set up to pour some wine and it breaks just like that.
So there wasn't a opera singer in the building?
Apparently not.
All right.
Or that opera singer is hitting a note so high that humans can't hear it, you know?
Yeah.
The dogs are over there going nuts.
Yep, dogs everywhere are madder than hell.
Let's see. Nancy Leonard. She is a desk clerk. She was told a new ghost story once, and she said this was one she had never heard while working at the hotel. She said this husband and wife were in the Herbert Hoover room. And she says they ended up smelling a lady's perfume, but the wife in this couple doesn't wear perfume. Not didn't have any on, doesn't wear it.
So
some people
she
don't.
Immediately blamed her husband for cheating.
Well, that could be a possibility because listen to the rest of this story. Later that night, they felt someone slide into bed between them while they were facing each other in bed.
Oh, geez.
So, you're laying there all cuddled up. You're looking, kind of looking in the same at one another. And then it feels like something crawls up and lays between you.
Yeah, I'm out.
If you have children, you know what this feels like. Even with your eyes closed, you know exactly what this feels like. And so for them to be laying there and to have that sensation, be like, pardon me? I don't know.
Get out.
Mm-hmm. But she said they told me that story when they checked out. But she said Nancy Leonard hears the most ghost stories coming from the Prairie cowboy room. She said, I heard someone telling how his wife was sleeping, but he woke up for no reason and he heard something. And then he thought he saw like a whoosh or something, like a spirit go by. He said he didn't wake up his wife because he would end up at his in-laws. So he just stayed quiet in the bedroom. This poor guy, man, he'd rather stay in a haunted hotel room than have to go to his in-laws.
That's funny. That's funny.
Oh, but you can imagine a place like this has gone through some paranormal investigations. And, I found a local paranormal group had investigated the Ox back in 2011. That was Black Hills Paranormal. And Dawn was the owner at this time and had contacted them about coming out and doing the investigation. Now, she had related this story to them. Okay. She said a guest had left the hotel in the middle of the night because of the paranormal activity. She said Dawn received a phone call from the guest who was in a panic. He told her that while asleep, someone pulled off all his covers. He reported that items were being thrown around the room. And before she could provide him with another room, he had left the hotel and never came back. So staff went to the room and found the room was in shambles. Nightstands were knocked over, the bed was moved, and items were all over the floor. So either he tore the heck out of this place like a rock star and then decided he was going to skip out to keep from paying his bill.
Yeah.
Or he was telling the truth. I got to think there's probably easier ways to skip out on your bill at a hotel, and certainly not in the middle of the night, at least get a good night's sleep out of it,
Right. Do that in the morning. Don't ruin your evening.
Sneak out after breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Now, during Black Hills Paranormal's investigation, they learned that rooms 18 and 19 had multiple reports of paranormal activity. 2 investigators were investigating these rooms, and they were conducting an EVP session. One investigator walked from room 18 into room 19 through an adjoining doorway. Okay. It was a connected room.
Mm-hmm.
They said, we had been told that the bathroom door has been seen opening and closing on its own, and we were trying to capture this on video. As the investigators asked for the door to open or close, they were surprised when the closet door in room 19 opened. Now, at the same time, the investigator sitting on the bed in room 18 screamed because she just got poked in the stomach.
Jeez.
And I read on, and they described this incident, and they said, you can go and watch the video on their website. They said, you can actually hear the doorknob turn and push open.
That's weird.
It wasn't like the door was securely closed is what they're getting at.
Yeah.
And, they're I read through some of their investigations. They're really good about actively trying to debunk any evidence they find. So they said they immediately started looking, was there a window open? Is there a vent? Is there a draft? Could something have blown this? Did something fall on the inside of the closet and push the door open? And of course, they all understand that the investigators are telling them, we heard the doorknob turn and it opened. So we know that door was closed. It wasn't just partially closed or not closed all the way where the latch would catch.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't do it. There was nothing in the closet that would have caused it. Nothing had fallen. There were no air vents, no wind, nothing. So, that's pretty creepy. We see these paranormal investigators try to elicit activity like that all the time.
Right.
And usually nothing happens. But to ask a spirit to do something like that would require that much energy. And it actually happened. And not only that, at the same time, another investigator gets a physical poke right in the stomach. Look, that's going to freak you out a little bit.
Well, and like you said, for them to take the time to try to debunk it and not just run with it was great, because that adds validity to the experience.
Exactly.
It's always the people that go, oh, did you hear that? Oh, did you hear that? And never try to debunk what they apparently heard.
Yeah.
That's where you go, hey, that was probably Bill's stomach growling over there. He probably needs a sandwich. But when you try to actually debunk it and you can't, I appreciate that, and I think it adds weight to it.
Yeah, it sure does. And Black Hills Paranormal said their investigation of the Ox covered 2 days, and investigators also witnessed a shadow figure between rooms 18 and 19 on the second night. They also tried to debunk this by recreating a shadow, but were unsuccessful. So, they even catch a shadow person and they try to go, okay, can we make a shadow look like what this one investigator saw?
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. So, pretty cool.
Yep, I agree.
Now, there have been physical touches in the bar and sometimes even a little pinch, just a pinch to grow an inch.
Yep, just a little goosing.
Others have heard a ball bouncing in the upstairs hallway or a girl laughing, but there's no one there. Then there was an incident.
Did the girl laughing happen after the pinch? Because they pinched you and then ran off laughing?
Yeah, exactly. Now that would be great if that's what was happening.
Oh yeah, I'd love to get that on camera. You get pinched and you hear the ghost run off laughing. You hear the footsteps and the laugh, and you're like, dude, my butt just got pinched.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But they described an incident in room 56 where there was an old-time heavy iron sitting in a corner of a room, and the hotel guest laying in bed heard the iron move across the floor.
Oh, geez.
And then got up and said it was in the middle of the floor.
So you're talking about one of those that we used to use as a doorstop.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Great-grandmother's house, solid cast iron.
Exactly.
That you would have to heat up in a fire and then iron with it.
Yeah.
Those are heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. My grandmother had one too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we used it for, was a doorstop.
She threatened to beat my great-granddad with it a few times. Never did, but it was a good threat.
I'm telling you, if you ever picked it up and were playing with it and dropped it on your toe,
dude, yeah. You could put a hole in the floor with that thing.
Yeah, exactly. But other entities reported at the hotel include several cowboys and even the apparition of President Teddy Roosevelt getting ready for a fishing trip upstairs in the library.
That's a cool apparition to see.
I know. Now, during the renovations, haunting stories were fairly common, with one contractor claiming to have seen a little girl in a nightdress standing in part of the hotel that was midway through demolition. Scared that a little girl had wandered into the construction site, he followed her across 2x4s and concrete, but she disappeared as soon as he rounded the corner. Other contractors claim to have heard the sound of spurs coming up the back stairs. Now, that's where there's a little bit of it wasn't, but there was talk at some point, some of the part of the Ox served as a bordello, a brothel. There's a lot of people that are like, no, that's not true. And there's a lot of people who say, yeah, it is true. My guess is that it probably is true to some degree because of where it was and the time that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It was very common for these saloons to have ladies working there and to have brothel rooms upstairs. Mm-hmm. So I don't imagine, even if it was for a short period of time, that the Occidental was any different. But more so than the sound of spurs, full apparitions of cowboys have been seen walking into the bordello room or just leaning against the wall.
Really?
Yeah. They say the hotel just exudes this strange feeling of unease, and guests often report cold spots passing through them as they walk down the halls when they're going back to their rooms at night. So, you just get that little, a little chill as something cold and spiritual just passes through you.
Yeah. That feeling that you hear people say feels like someone walked over my grave.
Yeah.
That chill down your spine.
But the most commonly seen apparition, and probably the most famous ghost story from the Occidental, is that of a young girl that the staff calls Emily. Emily was supposedly the daughter of a prostitute who operated out of the bordello suite in the hotel. Accounts state that Emily passed away from cholera in the early 1900s, and she is described as thin with long dark hair. Emily is well known for her mischief, and she often plays pranks on the hotel guests. Witnesses have reported feeling a small hand tapping their shoulder or pulling on their pant leg, only to turn and find no one there. She's also appeared to weary travelers as they fall asleep for the night. And the closer they are to the bordello suite, the more often Emily appears. A stuffed orange tabby cat is kept near the room where Emily died. This is thought to help keep that particular spirit happy. The girl is said to have had an orange tabby cat when she was still alive.
Man, a stuffed orange tabby cat.
Yeah.
I think that would be creepier than seeing a ghost.
Now, this is one of the cooler yet creepy aspects of Emily's hauntings. Children who have visited the hotel have left notes to Emily in that room. Many of those notes appear to be talking directly to Emily about how much fun it was playing with her.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Penny Ramirez, who I mentioned earlier, she says finding these notes is just a little disturbing.
I bet.
Like, to say the least, especially when they're written like, I had so much fun playing with you on this trip. I hope we get to come back,
Yeah. Hope you're here when I come back next time. What?
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah. And Penny Ramirez says she remembers 2 Asian girls who came to work at the hotel one summer. She said they each separately recounted a story about seeing a girl hiding behind a door and trying to play hide and seek with them. They told their story separately, not knowing about the other one's story. She said after they found out that they both had the same experience, they didn't want to clean that room anymore. And I was like, yeah, I bet they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you see, a lot of activity, but nothing super scary. Now, except for that guy that got his covers pulled off and stuff was thrown around the room. But maybe he was just in the wrong room. Maybe they've got one room that they're like, nah, look, the spirit in this room gets a little rambunctious. If you don't mind that, you can stay right here. But that the guy that said he didn't want to wake up his wife when he thought he saw a spirit go by because he was going to wind up at in-laws. That was great.
Yeah, that's funny.
But again, these are similar to other stories that we have heard from hotels that operated during the time of the Old West. Late 1800s. Cowboys and Teddy Roosevelt. He did a lot of traveling out there.
Yeah.
And he has left his mark, across these places. But the idea of prostitutes and everything. The one thing that I did not find about the Ox that we typically see in these hotels is somebody getting murdered.
That's true. Yeah.
Somebody getting shot in an argument, or some jilted bride committing suicide in one of the rooms. I didn't see any of those stories. Now, they could exist, and I just did not find them.
Yeah.
But we see that is one thing that kind of sets the Ox apart from the rest of them. Is it doesn't really have that. Which, that's kind of refreshing because those stories are a bit disturbing.
Right. We do a lot of those.
But if you have been to the Occidental, if you live up that way, if you've taken a family trip through there and seen it, stayed at it, whatever, let us know. We would love to hear if you experienced anything in or around the Occidental Hotel. Maybe you were a musician and you've taken a part in one of these Thursday night jam sessions. Yep. It'd be great. Let us know. And the best place to do that is in our Facebook group. Just go on Facebook, search The Graveyard. You'll find us. Thousands of members in there sharing stories like this. And it's just a great place to just dig in more about these creepy, crazy ghost stories and things of the like. Don't forget to check out our website, which is graveyardpodcast.com. And there you can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise. You can listen to the show, and you can become a patron, which Adam mentioned at the top of the show. Thank you so much to everyone who has supported the work that Adam and I have done for the last 7 years.
Yep.
Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. It does bring us up into the charts, which, that makes Adam and I feel good, but it makes the show easier to find. And that's what we hope, is that when people go in there and search, what's a good paranormal podcast, that, we're on that list.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
So pretty good. I like this place. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. A lot of good stories.
Cool history, good stories.
Yeah. Until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.